first time in the fall, I go to fire up the furnace. Nothing happens. Absolutely nothing. So, what do I do next? Well, you can certainly call a repairman. That would be the point you go to. But first thing you should do, and most repairmen are going to tell you this, is there any power to the furnace? So let's kind of take this step by step and see if we can figure out whether there is power to the furnace or not. Now let's go up and take a look at the thermostat. So you may be confronted with this when you look at your thermostat. Okay, that's a blank screen. That means there's no power to the thermostat. So what does that mean? Obviously the furnace is not going to work. So what do you do next to find out what the problem is? Now we've established that there probably is no power to the furnace when we saw that blank on the thermostat. So the next thing I'm going to do, rather than become a furnace service guy, I'm going to come down and look for something like this. Now looks like a light switch. Oftentimes is mistaken for a light switch, depending on where it's mounted. And it's up. Okay, up means on, unless somebody put the switch in backwards, which can happen. But if it's up, that means that the switch is on, there's power to the furnace. Now this is good for both gas and oil furnaces. Occasionally you'll have to look up somewhere up here to find the switch. There may be a switch up in the joist space. But most of them are either here or there's another place. Now here's another one. This could be a light switch. In fact, this actually is a light switch. Because the light goes on and off. This may also be a light switch, but it also could be a furnace switch. Oftentimes in newer homes, they put the light switch and the furnace switch in the same box on the wall to the entrance of the furnace room. So, and these are a little different. These are rocker switches. This means on, this means off. What a lot of times will happen is people will go out of the furnace room and they'll turn off both of these switches, and one of them's going to turn off the furnace. You would not believe how many times this happens. This is very, very common. So look for that kind of switch. If there is a switch there and it turns out to be the furnace switch, I would tape the thing on, put a marker on it or something that says furnace, so that nobody does that again. Anyway, those are the two types of switches you usually find, and this could save you a service call. Now one more thing I'm going to look at, we'll look at the breaker panel. Okay, here's a breaker panel. Now, standard 200 amp panel. Okay, they can be a bit intimidating because there's so many switches in here. They should be marked. They may not be. Well, that's one of the little issues we have. But this one is marked. It says furnace right there. And the switch is on. If this switch was turned off, it would look like that. If it was in the center on most breaker panels, there are different types of breakers, but most of them, this will actually go kind of to the center. And if you try to push it on, it won't go on. You have to turn it all the way off and then back on again. You can't get a shock here. Now, if somebody left holes somewhere in there and you stick your finger in there, that's going to blow that out of the water. So hopefully nobody's done that. to your panel. Anyway, make sure this switch is on. Now, have I fixed it? If the thing was in the center position, have I fixed this? No. You may have another problem because it kicked off for a reason, meaning it was under an overload. So you may need someone to come out and look at this and try to determine why it kicked off. It may kick off immediately as you turn it on. It may not kick off for 3 days and then do it again. So there is an issue if this is actually thrown, not just switched off. Here again, someone could have been down here fooling around, turned the breaker off, and not really noticed that that's what they'd done. And you go to fire up the furnace and it doesn't work. Okay, those are the 3 places to go when there's no power to the furnace. I'm going to link a video or two about a little bit farther you can go on troubleshooting this before you call a service tech, and you may want to go to those. But this one here is going to tell you if there's power to the furnace. Now, one thing I didn't cover was electric furnaces. It's a little more complicated because they oftentimes have multiple breakers inside the panel. And I'm not going to go into that one on this one. I do have some videos on electric furnaces. Okay, that's it on this one.